The night I gave birth, I had a sudden heavy bleeding. But Nathan, due to work, didn't receive the call and couldn't make it to the hospital. Fortunately, I eventually pulled through. When I woke up, Nathan vowed, "I will never let you down in this life, nor Emmy." Emmy is the name of our daughter. In the following 7 years, Nathan loved Emmy and me deeply. In everyone's eyes, he was a good husband and a good father. Until Emmy turned 7, Nathan threw her a grand birthday party. But I unexpectedly overheard him talking with a friend. "Nathan, on the night Emmy was born, did you really not hear that emergency call?" Nathan was silent for a moment, then replied, "That night Gina was sick and hospitalized. She called me crying, asking me to keep her company. After all, she was a girl I once liked, so I went. But she's a light sleeper, and I'm used to putting my phone on silent when I'm with her, so I really didn't hear it." Gina is Nathan's childhood friend. So on the night when my fate was uncertain, he was with another woman. Years of love and affection all turned into a joke at that moment. The dress was accidentally stained with some wine. The wine stain was abrupt and inappropriate. I planned to go back to my room first, change into a new dress, and then come out to continue entertaining the guests. Passing by one of the guest rooms, the door was slightly ajar, and a familiar voice came through. "Nathan, on the night Emmy was born, did you really not hear that emergency call?" Suddenly mentioning Emmy, I couldn't help but stop in my tracks. I peeked inside through the crack in the door. Nathan, who had just drunk quite a bit at the banquet, was now reclining slightly on the sofa resting. His daughter was sitting right beside him. Opposite him, a few friends were sitting scattered around. Regarding this somewhat nonsensical question, Nathan was silent for a moment. Then he spoke, "I really didn't hear it. Actually, I remember what happened that day too." Nathan's work has always been busy. Sometimes, when involved in important tasks, he puts his phone aside and really can't answer calls. Therefore, I don't understand why his friend would ask that question. After hearing Nathan's answer, I was about to leave. Just as I turned around, out of the corner of my eye I saw Nathan suddenly sit up straight, and even his gaze became much clearer. "You all know?" And the others in the room did not speak up either. They just exchanged glances, as if there was some hidden story I didn't know. So I stopped in my tracks once again. As for Nathan, he seemed lost in some memory, his voice even somewhat wavering. "That night Gina was sick and hospitalized. She called me crying, asking me to stay with her. After all, she was a girl I once liked, so I went. But she was a light sleeper, and I was used to putting my phone on silent when staying with her, so I really didn't hear the call from Iris." Gina, Nathan's childhood sweetheart. I knew from the beginning that Nathan had once liked Gina. But after we met, he repeatedly assured me that it was just a youthful infatuation and that he would never do anything to betray me. Everyone has their own past, and that's normal. As long as they can clear their heart and not be a scumbag who 2 times someone, it's fine. But I never expected that Nathan, who kept saying he only loved me, would find an excuse to visit Gina, who was hospitalized sick, while I was pregnant. No wonder his friend asked such a question. For a moment, my mind was filled with countless thoughts, and my legs felt as if they were filled with lead, standing motionless in place, looking toward Nathan in the room. After Nathan finished speaking, he turned his head to glance at Emmy sitting beside him, his eyes filled with unbearable pain. Fortunately, my Emmy is unharmed, otherwise, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life. Hearing this, his brother couldn't help but ask again, "What about Iris?" Nathan's eyes paused for a moment, then he reached out and picked up Emmy, facing his group of friends. "Of course, it's love. But this love, as it seems now, may not be so pure." Everyone sighed deeply. Then, someone, seemingly fearless, asked again, "Nathan, if I remember correctly, Gina once said that even if you had a child, as long as it wasn't Iris, she would be willing to be with you again. So, when you found out about Iris's accident the next day, was there a moment you hoped this possibility might happen?" At these words, the previously noisy room fell completely silent. Almost everyone was waiting for him to give an answer. "And I am the same." I really want to know if the man who said he would love me for a lifetime ever had a momentary thought wishing I would die in the delivery room, making way for his childhood sweetheart. But facing everyone's gaze, Nathan showed no panic. Instead, he slowly raised his hand to cover our daughter's ears. Then he said, "I did, but my wife now is Iris, and I will not betray her." Nathan once wished I would die. He had that thought, even if only for a moment. Because of this, my heart suddenly dropped for a moment. But he still smiled and said, "As for Gina, she's the girl next door, and also Emmy's aunt." Tonight, Emmy even made plans with Gina to go to the beach to set off fireworks together, right? Emmy, sitting in his arms, nodded upon hearing this. In a childish voice, she said, "Yes, I made plans with Gina. Dad and I will go find her, and we'll set off fireworks together." Someone couldn't help but tease her again, "What about your mom?" Emmy tilted her head, as if thinking, and after a long pause, she slowly spoke. "Mom is stingy and doesn't like Gina, so we have to keep it a secret. Mom can't find out." Nathan couldn't help but laugh as well. He bent down and kissed Emmy on the forehead. "Yes, my baby is really smart." I stood outside the door, watching them joke with each other, but my mind kept replaying what they had just said. It turned out that on the night when my fate was uncertain, my husband had been with another woman all along. The daughter I gave birth to at the risk of my life. Yet, in public, they said I was stingy and even helped Nathan hide the truth about me, becoming a sharp knife aimed at me. At this moment, I truly felt it was utterly absurd. I remembered the night I gave birth to little Emmy. At that time, there was still a week until the due date. Nathan was afraid something would happen to me, so he turned down all his work, saying he wanted to focus on staying at home with me during labor. And he had been doing very well all along. Until that night, he just said he would cook for me himself, but then he suddenly took a phone call. He said it was very important work. He had to go out for a while and promised he would be back soon. Work is important, and I am in good health. There is also a nanny at home, so it's not to the point where I can't do without Nathan. So I didn't think much of it. After seeing him off, I went for my usual walk in the backyard. But the wooden steps at the pavilion were damaged. I stepped on one and fell, causing bleeding from my lower body. I was urgently taken to the hospital by the nanny at home. The doctor said I was hemorrhaging heavily and showing signs of a difficult labor, with a possible risk to my life. I have no parents, only Nathan. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get through to Nathan's phone, and he didn't make it to the hospital in time that night. There was a time when I truly thought I would die on the delivery bed. Fortunately, I was lucky. In the end, I pulled through and gave birth to a lovely daughter. When I woke up, Nathan was kneeling by the bedside. His eyes were moist, his guilt overwhelming, and even his voice was trembling. He swore to me, "I will never let Iris down in this life, nor Emmy. Emmy is the name of our daughter." And he truly kept his word. For the next 7 years, he was always dependable to the two of us, a good husband and a good father in everyone's eyes. I always believed that my choice back then was not wrong. Until this very moment, overhearing their conversation in the room, I realized that the perfect love I believed in was nothing but a joke. Even my Emmy has betrayed me. The few people in the room did not notice my presence and were still engaged in lively discussion. Someone asked Emmy, "Your mom doesn't like Gina, but you're so close to her. Aren't you afraid of hurting your mom?" Emmy bowed her head and pondered for a long time. After a while, she said, "Why do you adults have to involve me in your matters? Can't Emmy just be everyone's darling?" Emmy, who had been pampered and spoiled since childhood, had a somewhat spoiled personality. I knew this was not good, but every time before I could scold her, Nathan would speak up to defend her first. He said that his darling should be proud like this and should be pampered by everyone. Emmy prefers Nathan, the good father who fulfills all her demands no matter what. As for me, perhaps in her heart, I am a bad mother. It felt as if an invisible hand was gripping my chest, the pain making it hard to breathe. I leaned against the wall and struggled to leave. I hadn't changed my dress, but sat there in the room in a mess, somewhat in disbelief. Yet, how could the facts witnessed with my own eyes be ignored? In a daze, I recalled what they had just said. If it was Emmy's birthday, they would always secretly celebrate it with Gina. Then counting back years, they must have done quite a few such things, taking advantage of my trust. Today, what excuse would they use? I didn't even wait long in the room. Nathan held Emmy's hand and pushed the door open to enter the room. The father and daughter looked very similar. With gentle smiles at the corners of their mouths and eyes full of my image, the big and small both rushed straight toward me. I couldn't help it and took a few steps back. Nathan reached out but missed, a flash of surprise crossing his eyes, but he didn't say much. As for Emmy, she asked confusedly, "Does Mom not want to hold me?" As she spoke, her eyes began to redden with grievance, her little nose sniffled and sobbed, looking at me pitifully. Nathan couldn't bear to see his daughter so upset. He immediately, half kneeling on the ground, reached out and hugged the child into his arms, then gently comforted her. "How could that be? Mom's clothes got dirty, and Emmy can wear her beautiful princess dress today. Mom is just afraid of getting Emmy's dress dirty too. How could she not want to hold you?" Someone was coaxing her nearby, and Emmy stopped crying. She just rolled her eyes around. Then she looked up, revealing a dazzling smile. Her voice was childish, "Mom, Dad, and I also prepared a gift for you. Although today is Emmy's birthday, Emmy will always remember the hardships Mom has endured. But the gift hasn't arrived yet, so Dad and I can't wait and plan to go get it ourselves." In a daze, I recalled that every year on Emmy's birthday, they would also prepare a special gift for me. Every time, I would be moved to tears. Now thinking about it, maybe it was just an excuse to go see Gina, never really for me. There was a sudden sharp pain in my chest. I lowered my head to look at Emmy, this child into whom I have poured all my heart and soul. I love her deeply, and even if it means giving her my life, I would do so willingly. But now, I realize it was all just a joke. And standing beside her was Nathan, the husband who once promised me he would never disappoint or betray me in this life. His vows, too, faded like fireworks. I felt both amused and sorrowful. So I silently nodded, watching them smile at each other, then hand in hand, leave the room. I stood on the balcony of the room, watching them get into the car and leave. Stepping out of the room, I arrived at the banquet hall on the first floor. The banquet was nearing its end, and the few friends who had just been talking to Nathan were also gradually preparing to leave. When they saw me appear, those people had inexplicable expressions, some with ill-intentioned smiles in their eyes. To them, I had always been nothing more than a joke. Watching them leave one by one, I returned to the room and took out the phone that hadn't been used for a long time from the box. I charged it and turned it on. This phone was a model from a few years ago, and it had a social media account that no one knew about. When Nathan and I first started dating, I learned about Gina. This childhood friend who grew up with him was a girl he had liked before, a special presence. And that affection was supposed to be the purest. So at that time, when I was still young and hot-headed, I felt a bit uncomfortable. I'm not sure if their relationship is really as Nathan said, they are just siblings now. Especially every time Gina sees me, she shows a subtle hint of provocation. So I created the social media account and added Gina's account, and I had been spying for several months. After confirming that Nathan really didn't lie to me, I put this phone away. Along with this social media account, no one else knows about it except me. Now, when I open it again, there is only Gina as a friend in the list. And there happens to be a new update in the feed. I clicked to open it and saw a complete 9-grid photo. In the picture, Gina and Emmy were standing by the sea, surrounded by many fireworks, all bursting simultaneously, very beautiful. They were as close as mother and daughter, faces pressed together, or kissing each other's cheeks. In the 9-grid photo, the one in the very center showed the three of them with their backs to the sea, making a big heart shape with their hands toward the camera, as intimate as a family of three. The caption read, "Celebrating the birthday of the people we all love together with the ones we love, this must be the greatest happiness in the world." I stared intently at that line of words, feeling it was very ironic. Yet, almost like self-torment, I kept looking over those few photos repeatedly, one of which showed Emmy playing with fireworks by the sea. And in the blurred silhouette, two people were kissing. Nathan and I had been married for 7 years, no one knew his back better than I did. It turned out that betrayal had long been there. A sharp pain struck my chest, and I braced myself on the table with one hand to keep from collapsing to the floor. I, Iris, am not a particularly kind or magnanimous person. Especially when it comes to betrayal, I cannot tolerate it. Since I saw it with my own eyes, I must make a choice. I turned around and walked straight into the study. Inside the study's safe, there was a share transfer agreement. Back then, when Nathan and I were together, his parents disapproved, especially his mother, who was willing to threaten with death. In the end, both sides compromised. They no longer stopped Nathan and me, but they did not allow us to get a marriage certificate. So this share transfer agreement was the promise and guarantee Nathan personally handed to me to make up for it. Without the constraints of marriage, money is used to make up for it. This is what he told me himself back then. I think it's time for this equity transfer agreement to come into play. I made a very long phone call in the study. When I came out, I realized that 2 hours had already passed. And Nathan and Emmy still hadn't returned. If I knew nothing, I would definitely worry about the safety of this father and daughter, fearing that something might happen to them. Now, I only feel irony. When I walked into the living room, the phone in my hand suddenly emitted a faint sound. It was a photo sent from an unknown number. In the photo, Emmy and Gina are holding hands, running toward Nathan not far away. The smiles on all three of their faces were exceptionally bright. It was as if they were the real family. And the background of this photo was by the seaside, surrounded by many fireworks being set off, undoubtedly taken tonight. As for this unfamiliar number, if I'm not mistaken, it's Gina. It's as if to prove what I was thinking in my heart. The next moment, the unfamiliar number sent another message. Hidden for a full 7 years, I imagine you must be very angry, and I hope you can make the right choice. This sounds reasonable, but in reality, it's persuading me to be more tactful and give up my seat to her. Perhaps it had been too long, and Gina finally couldn't hold back anymore, which is why she took a risky move and confronted me directly. I didn't reply to her message immediately. Because the door was pushed open, and Nathan was just walking and holding Emmy's hand. Both of them looked guilty. But it was only for a moment. Soon, Emmy handed me the portrait she was holding. "Mom, this is a drawing my dad made himself. I hope you like it. It is a portrait that looks very carefully done." I looked down at myself in the painting. My appearance hadn't changed much from many years ago, and the person who painted it probably did put genuine effort into it. If I knew nothing at all, I might have been moved to tears. Seeing that I remained silent for a long time, Nathan couldn't help but come over. He spoke softly, "Iris, don't you like this painting?" I looked up at Nathan in front of me. There was a faint scent of perfume on him, the one Gina used most often. I gripped the picture frame, my voice a bit rough, but I still asked him directly, "Nathan, where is that perfume scent on you from?" After so many years together, if he could be honest with me at this moment, maybe we could still part on good terms. Unfortunately, the moment I spoke, Nathan's expression changed abruptly. He immediately looked down at Emmy, or perhaps gave him a barely noticeable nod, then spoke first. "No wonder Mom is unhappy, it turns out she was overthinking again. Let's go to the shop to pick up this framed painting." The shop owner auntie had perfume on her, and Dad got a bit on him when he paid. Isn't that a very normal thing? "Mom, you shouldn't be so suspicious." Emmy stood with her hands on her hips, her little face puffed up with anger, as if she had done something very wrong. Nathan nodded in agreement beside her. "Iris, don't overthink it. Besides, I took Emmy out with me, what bad thing could we possibly do? Even if you don't trust me, don't you trust your own daughter?" As he spoke, he pushed Emmy toward me. This little girl, whose features resembled mine by about 70%, met my gaze and nodded openly. It was as if she truly had a clear conscience. I also want to believe her, but the words I heard with my own ears, and the photos I saw with my own eyes, make it impossible for me to deceive myself any longer. All I can say is, my daughter, like her father, is naturally good at lying. Seeing that I still remained silent, Emmy frowned slightly, then turned around and took Nathan's hand, pulling him toward her room. As they walked, she muttered, "Mom is so stingy, I've clearly explained it to you but you still won't listen. Dad feels so wronged." The moment she finished speaking, she had already pulled Nathan into her room, closed the door, and locked it. The next moment, a message came from an unknown number again. "If you don't believe me, I can prove it to you. Within 3 minutes, your beloved husband and daughter will find some fabricated excuse to come out and be with me." The instant I finished reading this message, the door opened, and Nathan was holding Emmy in his arms, just as I happened to see. He was stunned for a moment, as if he hadn't expected me to be standing at the door. Then he smiled and said, "Iris, after all, today is our daughter's birthday. She's a bit upset and wants to stay out for the night. I'll accompany her. You should get some rest early, I'll comfort our daughter." This excuse was really clumsy, but Emmy cooperated, urging her father to leave quickly. As they walked away, she said, "Since Mom doesn't like the pictures I draw, I won't draw anymore. I'll draw for someone else." Hearing this, it sounded like words spoken in anger. But I knew, perhaps she had already painted countless portraits like this one for Gina. I still did not speak, only watching the father and daughter leave. The next moment, the unknown number sent a third message. "If you still don't believe it, tomorrow at 8, Xingqing Amusement Park, you can see it with your own eyes." After so many years of feelings, completely letting go indeed requires some pain. Whether it was Nathan's betrayal or the daughter's lies. I think, if you decide to dig them out from the bottom of your heart, then seeing it with your own eyes will only make the pain clearer. So I came to Xingqing Amusement Park as promised. Nathan has a good appearance, standing in the crowd wearing a black trench coat, and I could spot him at a glance. Emmy is cute, held in his arms, equally eye-catching. As for Gina standing beside them, although she is over 30, she takes good care of herself and still looks as pure and lively as a young girl. The three of them walked side by side in the park, easily attracting everyone's attention. I stood not far away, watching the three of them walk side by side, then head to the carousel. Emmy excitedly pointed at the carousel, a big smile spreading across her face. The tourists waiting in line nearby couldn't help but remark, "Is this your daughter? She's really cute." Listening to the tourist's words, Nathan's eyes flickered slightly, but he didn't immediately admit it. Instead, Emmy, who had been held in someone's arms the whole time, nodded without hesitation. "Yes, these are my mom and dad." Sometimes, a man's betrayal is no more heartbreaking than a knife handed over by a child. And Emmy's words easily amused Gina. The smile on her face was hard to hide, and she reached out to pinch Emmy's cheek, looking like a doting mother. Immediately after, Nathan nodded. "Yes, this is our daughter." He paused for a moment, then looked at the child held by the other tourist and politely replied, "Your child is very cute too." After speaking, Nathan carried Emmy inside. Emmy chose a pretty little red horse herself, Nathan sat beside her, and Gina sat at the innermost side. The three of them were seated side by side. As the carousel started, Nathan skillfully took out his phone. He was never someone who took photos. Many years ago, when the three of us went on trips, I was usually the one holding the phone to take pictures, while he would go along with it. Now, he was so proactive in taking photos. Emmy and Gina also skillfully began striking various poses, clearly used to doing this often. The carousel spun round and round, and my chest was crushed and torn again and again. It hurt so much. But I didn't rush out, I still stood not far away, watching them leave the carousel and then head to another amusement ride. The spinning honey pot was especially good for photos. The three of them held hands and sat in the innermost seat, with Nathan still taking photos for them. Occasionally using the front camera, they took one group photo after another. I don't know how much time passed. Gina and Nathan sat very close, both slightly bowing their heads. I didn't know what they were saying, but Nathan seemed to be momentarily stunned. Immediately after, Gina took the initiative to move closer, seemingly intending to kiss him. However, the next moment, Nathan suddenly turned his body aside, avoiding the kiss, which seemed to have angered Gina. She stood there stunned, her eyes a bit red, looking extremely aggrieved. Nathan pressed his lips together, then reached out and hooked Gina's finger, a subtle atmosphere of intimacy unfolding. Emmy stared excitedly at the two people in front of her, even clapping and cheering. I quietly watched the scene, still feeling a bit sad. I couldn't keep going and instead turned around and left in embarrassment. Just after returning home, a new photo was sent from an unknown number. On the spinning honey pot, the two were kissing passionately. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I might have believed they really kissed. But I knew deep down it was just a misaligned photo. It was Gina's way of trying to provoke me. But it was true that they went out together. Nathan's betrayal never stopped at just that one kiss. I cannot tolerate betrayal, so after the banquet that day, I had already started making new plans. Because of that share transfer agreement, I own a significant portion of shares in Group X. It's just that I hadn't signed my name before. And now, I need to plan for my future, naturally aiming to maximize my benefits. Anyway, Nathan and I never got a marriage certificate, so some things can be much simpler. What once felt like grievances, now when faced with betrayal and separation, surprisingly brings a moment of relief. Relief that when I want to pull away, I can do it so quickly. The matter of the shares is progressing very smoothly. I want to maximize my benefits, I don't care who ends up taking these shares. Nathan's family is wealthy, whether it's a big loss or tolerating the rival company buying the shares, I don't care at all. So I directly arranged to meet Nathan at the old house, wanting to settle these matters once and for all. I don't want him anymore, nor do I plan to keep Emmy. So some things must be made clear. I just didn't expect that, even at such a critical moment, he would actually bring Gina along. Gina has been playing at my family's old house since she was little. She gets along well with my parents and grandmother. She's here these past couple of days to keep my grandmother company, so don't overthink it. I hadn't even opened my mouth when Nathan explained first. But the guilt in his eyes still somewhat betrayed him. I remained silent, just coldly watching him and Gina, their countless exchanged glances, and Emmy beside them, who at first seemed hesitant and kept telling me over and over, "I love Mom the most." Then she started walking toward Gina, leaving her back to me. I watched them laughing and playing. Emmy also looked at me, and seeing that I was not angry, she finally breathed a sigh of relief and then played boldly with her. I was just about to go upstairs with Nathan to discuss serious matters. The two who were playing in the living room somehow had an accident, the water cup on the table fell down, and immediately a cry was heard. I looked up and saw Gina fall to the ground, a blood streak on the back of her hand. Further down, her exposed calf also had a few drops of blood. "Auntie," Emmy exclaimed, quickly reaching out to pull her up. Even Nathan, who was just about to go upstairs with me, upon seeing this scene, without a second thought, pushed me aside as I stood right in front of him, then strode over to Gina, lifted her off the ground, and walked out without looking back. My arm hit the stair railing, a stiff pain. My heart hurt too. But I still stood there watching them. At the moment they were about to leave, then I spoke. "Nathan, where are you going?" Hearing my voice, Nathan paused for a moment, then turned around holding Gina and looked at me. "Gina is injured, I'm taking her to the hospital." He hesitated for a moment, then carefully said, "Iris, you girls know that scars on the body can't be left, right?" After he finished speaking, Emmy also nodded. "Mom, don't be stingy. Auntie is injured, even if she's family, you can't just look on coldly." Listening to my daughter's questioning, the pain in my already aching chest deepened even more. I lowered my head and looked at the wrist I had just bumped into. The pain was unusually sharp now, with slight swelling, but no one seemed to care. Seeing that I no longer spoke, Gina leaned directly into his embrace, her hands hooked around Nathan's neck, then flashed me a provocative smile. "Iris, don't overthink it. Nathan just took me to the hospital, we're fine." Nathan nodded as well. Hearing the person in his arms start to cry out in pain, his tone grew anxious, even somewhat accusatory. Iris, be reasonable. I was just taking her to the hospital. In front of everyone, how could I possibly do anything wrong? After saying that, he turned around directly, without any hesitation. And my daughter, Emmy, without any hesitation, followed behind, exclaiming that she wanted to go with her. The three of them just disappeared before my eyes. Nathan's grandmother, sitting quietly in the living room, simply watched the scene. When silence finally fell, she walked over to me with her cane, wearing a half-smile. From the very beginning, the only daughter-in-law in my heart has been Gina. You haven't registered your marriage, so no matter what they have, you can't do anything about it. After saying this, Grandma Xia leaned on her cane and went upstairs, not forgetting to instruct the housekeeper to make chicken soup for Gina. As for me, I never won her favor. In the past, I could endure it for the sake of the children and Nathan. But now, I glanced down at my phone, a call from an unknown number came in. Although there was no label, I knew who it was. I pressed to connect, the other party's voice deep, but still carrying a faint excitement. Have you made up your mind? The price I offered, you will definitely be satisfied with. I looked at the now empty courtyard in front of me. My husband and child were currently taking another woman to the hospital. They were as close as a family. So my existence, to them, seemed no longer that important. If that's the case, there really was nothing left to hold on to. I once wanted to keep the last shred of dignity, so I didn't immediately sell that share to Nathan's arch-rival. Now, Nathan bullies me, Emmy bullies me. Even Nathan's grandmother still hates me as always. So, why should I hold on to my last shred of dignity? Taking a deep breath, I no longer hesitated and replied, "All right, I'm willing to sell you the shares." Nathan came to the hospital carrying Gina. He looked anxious, with a little tag-along behind him, and rushed straight into the doctor's office. The doctor examined Gina's wounds. With a half-smile, he said, "If you had come any later, the wounds would probably have already healed." Hearing this, Gina's face turned a bit shy, and she couldn't help but reach out to lightly punch Nathan. "I already said it's fine, but you insisted on bringing me to the hospital. Now we've made a joke of ourselves, haven't we?" Nathan also smiled awkwardly. The doctor looked at them and couldn't help but sigh. "It's only natural for your husband to worry about you." It seemed that everyone thought they were a family. Nathan heard this and recalled the earlier moment at the amusement park. At that time, he didn't argue because his daughter was happy. But he always remembered who his wife was. So this time, when Emmy didn't speak first, he calmly said, "Doctor, you misunderstood. We're not married, she's my friend." The moment Nathan finished speaking, the smile on the doctor's face instantly froze. After all, the deep affection and subtle hint of intimacy they showed when rushing into the office just now, if they weren't husband and wife, it could only be some other kind of relationship. The doctor appeared calm on the surface, but inside he was sneering, and his tone grew much colder as he continued speaking. "Looks like you're not a bad person. Your friend got hurt and you brought him to the hospital. Does your wife know about this?" Nathan was momentarily stunned by this. What does that have to do with anything? The doctor, who always doted on his wife, heard his words and felt a mix of frustration and anger on behalf of his wife. "You have a wife, yet you're carrying someone else to the hospital. Do you think that's right?" Emmy, who had been silent beside them, couldn't help but speak up. "What's wrong with that?" The doctor then noticed the child sitting beside them, looked up at Nathan and Gina, and couldn't help but shake his head gently. "Of course, you're speaking up for your mom, but I still have to tell you, this is wrong." Emmy frowned, then spoke softly, "She's not my mom." Hearing this, the doctor was momentarily stunned, suddenly finding it ridiculous and somewhat unable to hold back, his mouth moving faster than his brain. "She's not your mom? Then why are you defending her so much?" Emmy was defiant, hands on her hips, retorting, "Just because she's not my mom doesn't mean I can't defend her. My mom is stingy and always bullies Aunt Gina. I'm standing up for what's right, not just for family." What's wrong with that? The doctor's gaze swept back and forth over the three of them, then he imagined a whole drama unfolding. Finally, he shook his head, his expression unreadable. Is your mother stingy, or are you and your father heartless, siding with another woman? If I had a daughter like that, I wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully at night. The doctor couldn't hold back after all. After saying this, he felt somewhat regretful but also relieved. He despised extramarital affairs. Isn't being a husband supposed to mean loving your wife and children? People like that, who eat from the bowl in front of them but look at the pot on the stove, especially when they favor someone else's child over their own, just thinking about it makes your heart cold. Perhaps it was the doctor's mocking gaze that was too obvious. Gina felt very wronged and wanted to explain her innocence, but the doctor simply didn't buy it. Nathan was somewhat stunned. Perhaps long ago, he had liked Gina, so he was much more patient with her than most people, but he believed he had never done anything to betray Iris. He always remembered his responsibilities as a husband. It's nothing more than occasionally running into Gina, having a meal together, or watching a movie. But these have been going on since childhood, so there's nothing special about it. Emmy also likes Gina. He feels that he is just loving the child and always keeps in mind the proper boundaries between the two. He has always felt clear in his conscience. Thinking this, Nathan straightened his back again, then looked at the doctor, his tone becoming much more serious as he spoke continuously. There's nothing between us, and my wife wouldn't care about these things. You're meddling too much. Hearing this, the doctor laughed angrily. Then he nodded and left only one sentence. If you think it's nothing, then I hope you won't be upset when your wife treats you the same way in the future. After all, they're just ordinary friends, right? After saying this, the doctor turned around and left immediately, feeling that staying even a second longer would bring bad luck. Upon hearing this, Nathan couldn't help but truly put himself in the situation. His Iris, if she were close to another male friend, eating together, watching movies together, doing many, many games and activities together. Nathan felt a sudden sinking in his chest. He couldn't tell if it was bitterness or jealousy, but it was definitely very uncomfortable. How could his wife be so close to another man? In an instant, Nathan vaguely realized something. If he himself felt uneasy, then if Iris knew, would she feel the same? Had he really done something wrong? At that moment, Nathan suddenly wanted to go home, give his wife a big hug, and say one sweet word after another, promising and swearing that he would never disappoint or betray her in this life. But Nathan didn't understand that such baseless confessions and deep affection often stem from extreme insecurity and guilt within. In the end, he was just a scumbag. After confirming that Gina's injury wasn't serious, Nathan immediately took out his phone to call Iris, but she never answered, and eventually even turned off her phone. He suddenly panicked, holding the child and running outside. Nathan, are you going to ignore me? Gina's voice was a bit choked and very aggrieved. Nathan's steps faltered slightly, and he turned to look at the girl he once liked, the woman who could cry for a long time over the slightest pain. Her tears had once made him lose control. Nathan was feeling a bit conflicted again. In the end, he decided to indulge just this once, promising himself he would love his wife properly from now on. Yeah, just this once. After leaving the old house, I went straight home. Many things were full of memories, so I didn't plan to take them. I only picked out 2 sets of clothes, including important documents. Everything else, I chose to leave behind. The plane ticket to another city had long been booked. After finishing all this, I dragged my suitcase and left home directly. On the way to the airport, I received a call from Nathan. He said that if I guessed correctly, they should be at the hospital by now. I didn't want to answer the call, nor did I want to hear their voices again, so I turned off my phone immediately. Then, I queued for security check and boarded the plane. The moment the plane took off, all the bitterness and unwillingness weighing on my heart began to slowly fade away. I think, for the rest of my life, I can live well on my own. The next time I saw Nathan was a month later. I sold all the shares I had, and my current savings are enough to support any extravagance I want. So I chose a city I liked and bought a small courtyard. Every day I would lie in the courtyard watching flowers and brewing tea. Life was pleasant and slow, truly comfortable. Until the courtyard door was pushed open, and Dusty Nathan led the slightly haggard Emmy, the two of them rushing straight toward me, seemingly wanting to hug me. Naturally, I dodged the hug and then looked at them coldly. Iris, I finally found you. Nathan's self-righteous affection only made me want to vomit. He continued, that day when I got home, I found you were gone, and the company at home was also in trouble. I knew you must have been forced into it. I don't blame you. As long as you come back, our family can still live well together. Nathan is not stupid, he could naturally guess that I sold the shares. But he insisted on making excuses for me. It seemed affectionate, but it was really quite foolish. So I didn't want to play the role of a deeply loving couple with him. Instead, I spoke plainly. There's no such thing as a family. We never got a marriage certificate from the start. To put it nicely, we were just boyfriend and girlfriend. Now we're broken up, and the shares you gave me are compensation. Nathan, since you betrayed me, I won't feel guilty or ashamed stabbing you in the back. From now on, we're even. As I spoke, I glanced down at Emmy beside him. This daughter, whom I carried for 10 months and gave birth to, once held all my love. But these repeated facts and lies have left me with nothing but disappointment for the child I once loved so deeply. I think, even a piece of flesh that falls off from oneself may not truly share the same heart. Perhaps there is some sadness, but what can be done? At least for now, apart from blood relations, we have nothing else left. Listening to my words, Nathan kept shaking his head, his eyes a bit red, repeatedly saying there was no clear resolution, nor a breakup. But I didn't want to see them anymore, so I directly drove them out. Emmy's eyes were also red, but her personality was more stubborn. Standing outside the small courtyard, she shouted at me, "Mom, you're so heartless, not even close to Aunt Gina. I shouldn't have come to find you with Dad. If you like Gina so much, then let her be your mom." Emmy outside the courtyard was silent for a moment, then spoke as if sulking. "Fine, I want Gina to be my mom." After that day, it was a long time before I heard any news about Nathan again. The shares Nathan initially gave me were quite substantial. I sold them all, and to his rival company at that, which dealt a heavy blow to Nathan, even pushing him to the brink of bankruptcy. Gina offered to help, but on the condition of a marriage alliance. Nathan agreed. The wedding was arranged hastily but still grand. However, on the wedding day, Nathan actually fled, leaving the bride alone, breaking down in tears. That night, it rained heavily. Nathan stood outside my small courtyard, saying he wanted to see me one more time. I didn't agree, and even moved to a different place the next day. Now I have a lot of money, enough to buy many houses, and enough ability to make sure he can never find me again. Later on, because Nathan ran away from the wedding, Gina was very angry. Nathan also vowed never to marry anyone again. The two had a complete falling out, and the rival company took advantage of the situation. Nathan suffered another heavy blow and could no longer hold on. Nathan, once a favored son of fortune, had fallen to the ground. Many who had been suppressed by him began to take ruthless revenge. He could neither protect himself nor his daughter. The day Nathan went bankrupt, I was on vacation abroad. Sunshine, beaches, and young vibrant men. Everything was perfect. As for my child, Emmy. Since birth, she could be said to have lived in luxury and been showered with endless love. But now, everything has fallen apart in an instant. She is no longer a little princess, cannot live in a villa, nor does she have a princess room. Unable to bear such a gap, she secretly went to find Gina. But being good to Emmy was originally just to be able to marry Nathan. Now, out of love turned to hate, Gina could only feel complete disgust for this child who shared blood ties with me. The aunt who had always been gentle and kind before had now completely changed her face, leaving Emmy confused and scared. Then she began to think of her mother. But life doesn't offer that many chances for regret. Whether it's her or Nathan, I will never forgive.